What's going on, guys? Nick here, and welcome to another Art Bros video. So today we got another awesome question from one of our Discord members, and this one is from BP123. They said, how long did it take you to attain a professional level quality in your artwork? Also, these days there are so many great artists. How do you make your artwork stand out? I think both of these points are really great topics to cover, so let's dive right in. So the first thing we should consider is what constitutes actually being a professional. In my opinion, it means being able to charge a client for your work and something that's meaningful, something that you might be able to pay the bills with. I don't think you necessarily need to work for a big AAA studio or work for a really huge client in order to consider yourself a professional. I think you can start saying that once you're, either making a living off of your art or, able to charge, a moderate rate and get paid for producing art for someone else. So, in my case, I like to start thinking about myself as starting out my professional career at the beginning of college. So from starting college to being to getting paid like real money to actually produce art, it was about 4 or 5 years or so. And that was me hardcore working like all throughout my college career, going and getting feedback from other artists, making sure I was like consistently getting better and better every year. And finally getting to that point where, I could submit my work to somebody like Fantasy Flight Games and them sending me some card art to do. This is definitely something you need to work towards, and it's not something that's going to happen overnight. It's totally cool to, open up commissions and take on small jobs or even work for free to kind of build up that repertoire and build up that skill set. But just know that you do need to, continuously build up a portfolio and relationships with people before you're gonna, start feeling like you can actually call yourself a professional artist. It might be scary to sort of think of yourself in that way. A lot of people throw around the term imposter syndrome, which I can totally understand. But do just know that like, even if you are working with clients on a smaller scale and, you're producing valuable work for them, then, you can call yourself a professional. That's totally okay. This sort of goes without saying, but as you grow and as you continue to paint or draw or do whatever, your eye will start to begin to catch things it didn't see before, and you will slowly start developing that like individual style or theme or brand to your work. And in terms of developing a style, a lot of people ask me like, what constitutes a style? And I think this is a topic I could cover another video fully. But I do think that the way I like to think about style is the way you like to paint or draw when you're not looking at reference. So if you're just drawing in your sketchbook or just opened a blank Photoshop document and started painting something you like to do, however that image looks ends up being your style. And I think your style can be fluid, and I think it is something that can change over time. It's just a matter of like pushing your interest in the way you like to lay down brush strokes or stylize certain proportions or whatever that will sort of get you to where you need to be. It's really not important when you're starting out to be like, I need to find a style, because at the end of the day, trying to stylize too much or trying to dive too deeply into something that isn't realism is going to unintentionally get you into drawing with bad habits. And I'm a strong believer in really understanding your fundamentals and knowing how things work before applying them to your art. So I would say, develop your free drawing skills on the side, but definitely double down on what makes a painting look real and correct, and really understand all of those fundamental skills. And that's just going to help you in the long run. I think really once you can achieve a certain amount of realism in your work, if you want to go more stylized, you can always sort of simplify things very easily. And you're going to understand why light can be simplified or shapes can be simplified, because you know how everything works. So also in terms of growing and developing your skill, what I like to typically tell people is make sure you're always doing your studies, but have some sort of personal project that you're working on the side. And I do think also it's a good idea to give yourself a deadline. Like, okay, if you're trying to build up a portfolio or something like that for X client, you're going to say, all right, I'm just using myself as an example. I really like doing character design and concept art. I would say something like, okay, I'm going to get 3 character concepts and 3 character concept turnarounds done in a month. Maybe like 1 illustration to just show that I can kind of like compile characters into like a full illustration or painting. But that way you, at the end of the month or whatever, will have this body of work that's cohesive, and it's something that you can kind of lean into in terms of like developing your style. And you can keep doing that exercise, but having these small batches of goals or milestones for yourself is going to allow you to like continue to push that professionalism. Because at the end of the day, if you're a freelance artist or a contract artist or working at a studio, they're going to want you to be able to have a certain body of work that fits whatever theme the client is asking for. We're not talking about fine art at all in this sort of situation. You know, if you want to be a professional fine artist, you really have to lean into like your strengths in terms of like what you think makes your certain way of painting or art stand out. But in terms of like work, contract work, whatever, in the entertainment industry, you have to have this solid body of work that applies to whoever you're, you know, trying to get work from. The other thing that I can touch base with as well is you should also be thinking about developing some sort of brand for yourself. That can be some sort of like, you know, name you call yourself on the internet, or, you know, again, like just based off your style, you really lean into horror and you're like the horror guy, or you're the guy that, you know, draws, you know, unicorns all the time. I don't know, whatever it is that you just genuinely like to lean into. That's what I suggest you sort of push and try to develop a brand out of. Like for me, it's sort of this stylized, like fantastical, foresty, like mechanical kind of thing. Like I really have an interest in that, and you can see that in like my concept art and my video game that I'm working on and stuff like that. And that's sort of the brand I'm trying to push into, like the painterly sort of realistic sort of stuff. Lastly, in terms of finding work and, you know, achieving that level of professionalism and, you know, just standing out amongst other people, there's millions of artists who are going to be better than you, and that's just a fact, and that's something you kind of have to wrap your mind around. But what you need to tell yourself is not one of those artists is you. So no matter what, no matter your level of skill, there's always something you as a person can bring to the table. And I think that's what you should really be trying to capitalize on in terms of your networking and talking to other people and trying to get work. Like I talked about this a little bit in my last video, but in terms of writing a cover letter or going out to meet somebody at a convention or whatever, like just really be yourself. And those little quirks, those little personality traits that stand out are what make people want to work with you. It's sort of a hard thing to like develop, but just practicing being social is going to bring out sort of like your inner self and your inner interests, and people really latch on to that. And it's important to know that you, like, at the end of the day, like, people want to work with cool people. Like, that's really it. You could have the best portfolio in the world, you could have the worst portfolio in the world, but if you're like just a really cool person, or you sort of like make an impact on somebody, they're 9 times out of 10 gonna want to work with you. And even if your skill level's like not quite there yet, you know, having a relationship with somebody might lead to work in the future. And I'm speaking from experience in that instance. Like, I made it a point to try to make an impact on people when I was going to conventions and meeting people, and, you know, going to PAX East and stuff like that. And like, even if you don't get work right away, there's always a chance that you can get work in the future and be able to call yourself a professional. So I hope that little discussion helped out. If you guys have any questions about any of this, like, be sure to, you know, write me a comment in the comments below on YouTube. Be sure to contact me on Discord. Like, I'm happy to chat and give some advice or help or whatever I can offer to anybody. So yeah, just hit me up, and look forward to the next video. Thanks, guys. Bye.